By the time the fraud investigator finished reading the list of accounts, my mother had stopped talking. My sister had stopped talking too. The line went completely silent, the kind of silence that fills a room even when you're not in the same room. I didn't say anything either. I just waited. That silence, after 4 years of being the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the one who didn't know how to be a real part of this family, that silence was the only answer I ever needed from any of them. Let me tell you what happened. Because this story starts not with what they did. It starts with the moment I found out. And what I chose to do, and more importantly, what I chose not to do after that. My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old. I'm a senior compliance analyst at a regional bank, which means, professionally, I spend my days reviewing financial documents for inconsistencies, for patterns that don't add up, for signatures and numbers and dates that don't match the story someone is trying to tell. The irony of what I am about to tell you has not escaped me. I grew up in a 3-person household. My mother, Carol, my younger sister, Jessica, and me. My father left when I was 11 and Jessica was 8. After that, my mother worked 2 jobs for 6 years to keep the mortgage paid and food in the house. I have never forgotten that. I don't think I ever will. What changed is not what she sacrificed. What changed is what she decided that sacrifice entitled her to later. Jessica is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was louder, warmer, more socially immediate in the way some people just naturally are. My mother understood Jessica in a way that required no translation. They went shopping together. They called each other every day. When Jessica struggled, my mother solved it. When I struggled, my mother told me I was resourceful. I don't say this as a complaint. I say it as context. By the time I was 28, I had paid off my student loans, moved into my own apartment, and accepted a position at the bank that required a federal background check and a credit review. I passed both cleanly. I had worked for that. I was careful about debt, careful about credit, careful about every financial decision in a way that people who have watched a parent work double shifts to avoid foreclosure tend to be. Jessica, at 25, had a dream. She wanted to open a boutique clothing store, not a franchise, her own concept, her own branding, her own vision. My mother was more excited about this than she had been about anything in years. She told everyone. At Thanksgiving that year, it was the only topic at the table. Jessica had done the market research. Jessica had found the perfect location. Jessica was going to build something real. I asked questions about the lease structure and the working capital projections. My mother told me I was being unsupportive. I let it go. The store required startup capital, $94,000, according to the business plan Jessica had put together. It was not an unreasonable number for what she was describing. The problem was the source. My mother did not have $94,000. Jessica did not have the credit history to qualify for a commercial loan on her own. My mother called me 3 weeks after that Thanksgiving dinner. She did not ask me directly to co-sign. She rarely asked for things directly. She described the situation, described the opportunity, described what it would mean for Jessica to have someone in her corner, someone with a stable income and a good credit profile who believed in the family enough to take one risk together. I told her I would think about it. I did think about it. I thought about it for 2 weeks. I asked Jessica for the full business plan, which she sent with some reluctance. I reviewed the lease terms, the supplier agreements, the revenue projections, the exit scenarios. I had questions. Some of them Jessica answered clearly. Some of them she dismissed as overthinking. My mother told me twice during that 2 weeks that I was making this harder than it needed to be. On a Sunday evening, I called my mother. I told her I had reviewed everything carefully. I told her I hoped the business succeeded, and I genuinely meant that. I told her I was not willing to put my credit history and financial stability on the line for a venture I would have no operational control over. I told her this was my decision, and it was final. She said she understood. She said it in the specific tone that means, I have heard you, and I will not forget this. That was the last honest conversation we had. 3 months after that phone call, Jessica opened the store. I found out from a cousin's Instagram post. I was not invited to the opening. I sent flowers anyway, a large arrangement with a card that said simply, "Congratulations, I mean it." I do not know if Jessica received them. She did not acknowledge them. The following months were quiet between us. My mother and I spoke occasionally, holidays, a birthday call, the kind of contact that maintains the form of a relationship without the substance. She talked about the store. She talked about Jessica's ideas, her expansions, her challenges. She talked about these things the way you talk about something that belongs to you. I listened. I said the appropriate things. I did not offer opinions. Approximately 18 months after the store opened, something happened that had nothing to do with my family, or so I thought. I ran my quarterly credit report. I did this every 3 months without exception. It was a professional habit that had become a personal one. I used a service that pulled all 3 bureaus simultaneously and formatted the results in a way I could scan quickly. I was at my desk on a Tuesday evening when I ran it. The report loaded. I started reading from the top: open accounts, balances, payment history, credit inquiries. Everything looked correct for the first several lines. Then I saw it. A personal installment loan, $58,000. Origination date, 22 months earlier. Current balance, $51,340. Lender, Meridian Community Credit Union. Status, active. Payment history, 11 months current, then 2 missed payments. I did not open that account. I sat very still for a moment. I read the entry again, slowly, the way I read documents at work when something doesn't match. The lender's address was 31 minutes from my mother's house. I kept reading the report. 7 entries down, I found the second one. A business line of credit, $94,000. Origination date, 34 months earlier, right around the time Jessica launched the boutique. My name was listed as personal guarantor. The business entity listed was Jessica's store. I had never signed anything as guarantor for that loan. I had explicitly, clearly, and verbally refused to guarantee it. I closed the laptop. I stood up from my desk and walked to the kitchen and filled a glass of water and stood at the window for what I estimate was about 4 minutes. Then I went back to the desk, opened the laptop, and ran the report again on the second bureau. The same 2 accounts appeared, and there was a third entry I had missed on the first scan, a home equity line of credit on a property I recognized as my mother's address. $38,000. Origination date, 50 months earlier. My name listed as co-borrower. I had never agreed to that. I got out a legal pad. At the top I wrote the date. Below that I wrote 3 headings: Account 1, Account 2, Account 3. Under each heading I wrote the lender name, the account number as it appeared in the report, the origination date, the current balance, and my role as listed: borrower, guarantor, co-borrower. At the bottom of the page, I wrote the total: $190,000. Then I made a list of 3 phone calls I needed to make, in order, and the information I needed to have ready for each one. I made the first call at 7:45 that evening. It was to the Fraud and Disputes Department at Meridian Community Credit Union. I identified myself. I told the representative I was a compliance professional and that I believed a loan account in my name at their institution had been opened without my authorization. I provided my full name, my social security number, and my date of birth for verification. I told her I had not opened the account, had not been present at any signing, and had not provided authorization of any kind. She asked me to hold. She was gone for 6 minutes. When she returned, her tone had shifted to the careful, specific register that financial professionals use when something has been confirmed and the next steps are procedural. She told me the account had been opened in person at their branch. She told me there were 2 signatories on the application. She told me the second signatory was listed as a co-applicant. She told me the co-applicant's name. It was my mother. I wrote that down. I asked the representative to initiate a fraud investigation, to flag the account as disputed, and to freeze all associated activity pending the outcome of that investigation. She confirmed all 3 actions and told me I would receive written confirmation within 5 business days. I thanked her and ended the call. The second call was to a business attorney named Marcus Webb. I had met him at a regional compliance conference 2 years earlier. We had stayed in professional contact. I trusted his judgment because I had watched him work. It was 8:15 in the evening. I called his cell phone, which he had given me with an open invitation to use it if I ever had a situation that couldn't wait. He answered on the 3rd ring. I told him what I had found, all of it. I read him the account numbers and balances from my legal pad. I told him about the credit union call I had just completed. I told him I had not yet contacted my mother or my sister and did not intend to. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You want me to handle the contact?" I said, "Yes." He said, "All of it." I said, "All of it." He said he would start drafting in the morning. The 3rd call was to the fraud department of the lender holding the business line of credit. That call went similarly to the first. The representative confirmed my identity, confirmed the account details, confirmed my name as guarantor, and initiated a fraud dispute when I reported that I had not authorized my name to be used in that capacity. The account was flagged for review. By 10 o'clock that evening, I had formal disputes filed on 2 of the 3 accounts, an attorney engaged and briefed, and a legal pad with every relevant number written in my own handwriting. I had not sent a single message to my mother. I had not called my sister. I set an alarm for 6:30, closed the legal pad, and went to bed. I want to explain why I made that choice, to say nothing to either of them. I have worked in financial compliance for 9 years. In that time, I have seen dozens of fraud cases proceed through investigation, dispute, and resolution. The ones that resolve cleanly are the ones where the first documented version of events is accurate, complete, and comes from the person who was harmed. The ones that become complicated are the ones where the victim contacted the perpetrator before involving legal or institutional processes, because that contact gives the other party time to construct a narrative, gather allies, and introduce ambiguity into a situation that would otherwise be straightforward. If I had called my mother the evening I found the accounts, she would have had days, potentially weeks, to prepare a response before any formal process began. She might have claimed I had agreed verbally. She might have produced witnesses. She might have framed it as a family misunderstanding rather than what it was. By saying nothing and allowing Marcus to send the first formal notification, I ensured that the first thing on record, in writing, sent through legal representation, was my version, which happened to be the accurate one. In fraud cases, the first documented account carries disproportionate weight. I have always known that. Marcus sent 4 letters on a Thursday, 8 days after our phone call, 2 days after I had brought him my full documentation folder in person, 1 day after he had verified all 3 account disputes through his own review. 3 of the letters went to the lenders. They were formal legal notifications identifying his representation of me, referencing the active fraud disputes, and requesting original application documents including all signed materials for forensic review. The 4th letter went to my mother's address. It was addressed to both my mother and my sister. It notified them that I had retained legal representation in connection with the unauthorized use of my name and financial identity on multiple loan instruments, and that all future communications regarding these matters should be directed to Marcus's office. It did not express anger. It did not make accusations in emotional terms. It stated facts and provided contact information. Marcus told me later that it had been delivered on a Saturday morning. My mother called Marcus's office on Monday. My sister called twice on Monday afternoon. Marcus spoke to neither of them. His assistant documented the calls and their timestamps. The following Thursday, Marcus called me. He told me the credit union holding the personal loan had completed their preliminary review of the application signatures. Their handwriting consultant had compared the signature on the loan application against my verified signature on my banking documents, my employment records, and my driver's license. The signatures did not match. The fraud designation was confirmed. The account was being removed from my credit report. My mother remained as the sole responsible party. He told me the lender holding the business line of credit had suspended the account entirely pending their own investigation and had notified the business entity, my sister's store, that no further draws would be available during the review period. He told me the third lender, holding the home equity line, was still in process but had acknowledged receipt of his notification. He told me his office had received 11 calls and 3 written messages from parties claiming to represent my mother and sister, including 2 from a family member I will not name, asking if there was a way to resolve the situation privately before the investigations concluded. Marcus had responded to all of them with the same answer. His client was not available for private negotiation on the matters described. I said, "Good." He said, "The sister's business is going to have a problem if the line stays suspended." I said, "I know." He said nothing else about it. On a Thursday evening, 48 hours after Marcus's update call, my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered. She was talking before I finished saying hello. Her voice was controlled in the way that someone's voice gets controlled when they are preventing themselves from something else. She said there had been a miscommunication. She said she had always planned to make the payments herself and had never intended for any of this to affect my life in a real way. She said she had believed I would have agreed, eventually, if she had explained it properly. She said she had only been trying to give Jessica a chance. I listened to all of it. When she stopped, I said, "Mom, these matters are in my attorney's hands now. If you need to discuss anything, you can contact his office." She said, "Sarah, Jessica can't make payroll this week. The line is frozen. She's going to lose the store." I said, "I know." She said, "I need you to tell your attorney to stop. I need you to tell him this was a misunderstanding. If you just explain." I said, "Mom, I didn't open accounts in your name. I didn't forge your signature. I didn't expose you to debt without your knowledge. I found unauthorized accounts on my credit report and I reported them. That's what happened." She said, "You're destroying this family." I said, "Good night, Mom." I ended the call. The third account, the home equity line, was resolved 6 weeks later. The lender confirmed that the co-borrower designation had been added to the account without documentation meeting their current authentication standards. My name was removed. My mother was required to requalify for the line independently. Her income and credit profile, without my financials attached, did not meet the threshold. The line was closed. On the same day I retained Marcus, I had also called my bank and canceled the automatic transfer, the $800 monthly payment I had been sending my mother for 4 years. She has not mentioned it. We have not spoken since the phone call. My sister sent me a text message 9 weeks after the store closed. It said, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I did not reply. I am not proud or ashamed of what happened. Pride and shame are responses to choices. I did not choose for my name to appear on 3 financial instruments I had never authorized. I did not choose to be excluded from a family holiday so my mother and sister could meet investors while I sat in my apartment 30 minutes away, unaware that my credit profile was being used to fund a business I had explicitly refused to support. What I chose was this. When I found out, I documented everything carefully. I involved professionals immediately. I said nothing to the people who had done it, and I let the process work. The process worked. Every account has been removed from my credit report. My score has fully recovered. The $800 monthly transfer has not resumed and will not resume. I kept every document from this process. The original credit reports, my legal pad with the handwritten notes from that first evening, Marcus's letters, the lender responses, the fraud investigation outcomes. I keep them in a folder in my desk drawer. Not because I expect to need them, but because I learned a long time ago, in a job that requires me to look at other people's financial decisions all day, that the people who never have to raise their voices are the ones who kept their records. The document said everything. I never had to say a word.